So once in a while I start a movie without Kaylee, and I watch about, I don't know, 5 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that area, of the movie. And then I stop it and I go, okay, I think this is definitely for Kaylee, right? Sometimes I don't do that, even though I think the movie's for Kaylee, and then we have to rewatch the whole thing. That's rarer. In cases like this, I was like, oh, that was creepy. All right, cool. I like the atmosphere of this one. I'm going to pause this, watch it with her later. And we did. And we're here to talk about it. Now, this one is available on Prime for those of you who have that, but otherwise it is a VOD rental. I also think it might be free on a couple of like services like Roku Channel or whatnot. So you might be able to also watch it for free. Definitely look into it and download the Just Watch app if for some reason you don't have it. I utilize that thing all the time. Anyway, so The Banished, a movie that currently holds a 3.8 on IMDb, which, you know, I bring up IMDb scores on here frequently because I use them as a metric, right? As a gauge to see if whether or not a movie is worth my time. If a movie resides somewhere in the mid fours or above, I usually will give it a shot because I find that those movies have a decent percentage chance. You know, obviously anything in like the sixes and above, I'm like, okay, instantly on.
Yeah.
But usually I don't go below like a 4.5 or something. I didn't check out the IMDb score of this one beforehand, and had I probably wouldn't have watched it because it had such a low rating in the 3.8s. But I am here to tell you that that is a very flawed system because you can absolutely overlook films that you end up really enjoying, and this happens to be one of those films that currently holds a really, really abysmally low rating, and I thought was really damn good. Now, do I think that this movie is going to be for everyone? Of course not. No film is. Do I think that this is going to be for a mass audience? No, I don't. I think that people will find this to be too slow or boring, or that there's not enough story, or there's not enough going on. I heavily, heavily disagree. But, you know, I can't convince people of what they like, nor am I here to try. But I can only give you I guess I can only give you my take, but we can give you our opinion on it, and you can go off of that. So, obviously, you know that I enjoyed it. Kaylee, what did you think?
I also enjoyed it. It definitely has a very intense atmosphere and a good amount of mystery and intrigue as far as like what is happening. And I was into it. I also think that there was quite a bit going on, and I think that especially the ending leaves a lot to think about and maybe discuss. You know,
Yeah,
this is also the type of film that I think would very much be helped by rewatching it,
I agree.
just because of kind of maybe the weight or the enormity of the ending. But I was really into it. Yeah.
Same.
Especially like, you know, when we look at those scores or the ratings on IMDb, and it's like this has such a low rating compared to other movies that are just objectively like worse films in terms of acting and the feel and the look of the film and the story and everything. It's pretty shocking, but you know, this just tells me that people don't have as much of I don't know if it's an attention span or if it's more of like there's a lot of ambiguity to this story that I think people have a hard time when they're not being spoon-fed stuff sometimes, I guess, is what I'll say.
Sure. I mean, I think that, you know, I watch a lot of Patrick H. Willems. Big shout out, my favorite YouTuber. And he had talked about how the Marvel landscape of cinema has taught its audience to care about plot above all else, right? That you're teaching a generation of film watchers to really focus on one aspect of a film, and that's really the most important thing, is to know where all the Infinity Stones are at any given point and what they do and what characters are related to them and this and that. That's all you should care about. I care about plot. I care about where the Infinity Stones are, so to speak, too. Right? But I also like film. I also like mood. I like atmosphere. I like ambiguity. I like, long lingering shots of eerie things where people are like, this is pointless. Why isn't this driving the plot forward? I like sex scenes. I like atmosphere. I like music and how it complements a scene. So like I'm somebody who is of, I guess, the old school uh, when it comes to my film watching um, desires and likings. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that like, oh, if you find this movie boring, then you just don't get cinema and whatever. That's not the claim I'm trying to make here, but I am starting to see that this is becoming a trend with film criticism now.
Yeah.
Everything's about, oh, we could cut 20 minutes here. Like every review I watch, it's pretty much boils down to the same few criticisms, and one of those always being that, the plot didn't make enough sense, or that the film needs to be shorter. And it's like, where would you cut? Right? That always becomes the question I have when people are like, oh, it should be shorter. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the movie, let's watch it together, and tell me where you want to cut. And I can almost guarantee you they will always want to cut the atmosphere and the long shots and stuff like that. Something that builds mood, tension, character stuff. I just feel like people are not interested in that stuff as much as they once were. And moody films like this that really rely on atmosphere building and lingering shots that are supposed to creep into your psyche. Like, I don't know how a movie like The Shining would play to a 2025 audience.
Yeah.
Now we've adopted it into our culture as a staple of the genre, but that's because it's got that kind of like nostalgia filter to it that people seem to be able to overlook. Although you do get takes from newer generations that are like, oh my god, this film's so overrated, so boring, right? Of course you get those as well. But do those types of movies play well to audiences now if they're new? I don't think as much. I think that there's definitely an audience for it that still exists, obviously, right here, and others that frequent this channel. But yeah, I really enjoyed the shit out of this one. And to see such an abysmally low rating is very disheartening. And I think it would be as well if you were the filmmaker of this movie.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about what this movie is about
but...
or like much else, but it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because if I made this film, I would be so fucking proud of it.
Yeah.
And if I was to go to IMDb, and another film that we loved recently, both Kaylee and I, it's actually one of my favorite films of this year that also has tremendously low ratings on IMDb, and it's for very similar reasons. It's Rabbit Trap.
Oh my god.
With Dev Patel, which is fucking fantastic.
Like, up in my top 10 of the year. Like,
it might be in mine
easily.
as well.
Yeah.
And it has like a 4.7 or 8 or something. It's like, God, what the fuck?
There's definitely similarities-ish in terms of the atmosphere between those two films.
Yeah.
Not really in the content, so there's no like spoilers if you've seen Rabbit Trap or anything, but the vibes of like, there's a lot of time spent in nature in this film. So there's a lot of shots of like a forest and everything, and I really love when we get that type of setting in a film. Like, I like urban settings too, but there's something about like
isolation.
There's something about the isolation, but also just when filmmakers can really capture like this essence of being in a natural environment that really just adds something else to the movie, and I really liked that. But basically the film is just about a girl who is looking for her brother after their father dies. Like, that's the basic premise, and she goes into the woods to search for him. So there's a lot of really cool imagery in this, very subtle, spooky stuff that I know is freaking both of us out, and I think also a lot of very symbolic imagery too, especially towards the end. There's just these shots of certain things that they just feel highly like symbolic, and so I think that the film, it has that aspect to it too, where it's not as straightforward of a story. It's a lot more of like, I don't know if I would say it's like a dream, but kind of ish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I sometimes worry when we compare things to being dreamlike that people think that means that they're automatically like really weird, and that's not the case. It's more, I mean, sometimes that is the case, but in this one, it's more of like the imagery and stuff that's happening and like the setup because of that dreamlike quality. Like you almost have to interpret it as you would a dream.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that the nature discussion here is very important because the imagery that we get in here is connected to nature, right? Like, and I think why that probably scares us on like a primitive level is because that's where we came from, right? And we developed away from being able to be set in that situation where we're vulnerable in some small dwelling that's in the middle of the forest with predators all around us, right? Like that's still somewhere deep in our psyche from our ancestors and being returned to our roots when we weren't safe and cozy every night in our fortresses, in a city that all of the predators have been pushed to the outskirts. And I like that return to nature, and everything in this movie is nature based with its imagery. Even the villains are donning something that resembles nature, and I really appreciate that within this film. And yeah, I mean, this film has a non-linear structure to it that can probably be confusing, and it was to me for the first 10 minutes. I'm glad I actually started it over with Kaylee because I was like, wait, I don't understand what's happening now. And when I went back and rewatched it, I paid closer attention and was like, oh, okay, I get what's going on now. We're good.
Yeah, that's also the other part of like these types of films is that they do require you to actually pay attention a lot more than, maybe something like a little bit more accessible, like a Marvel movie, I guess. Although I'm sure people could argue like, oh, you need to be paying attention to know like all the plot stuff, but you kind of have to be paying attention to this one in a different way.
Sure. So when it comes to like why I think putting Marvel aside, I only use that as a Patrick, example.
It's a good example,
but
though.
I want to talk about more of like the Conjuring style film where the scares are much more in your face, where you're seeing Valak and she's running at the screen, and the imagery is very intense and very obvious, and the imagery is something that we can all see as like this very obvious monster. And this is more of like shadows in the dark, something that our imagination plays with, right? More. This definitely leads to more imaginative scares in your own mind, in your own psyche, where you're struggling to kind of see what's on the screen. And there's a lot of people who just don't like that style of horror. They want something much more obvious and much more running at the screen, the crooked man, or like the red-faced demon from Insidious or something, so where everything on the screen is very obviously horror and the imagery is very, very present and obvious. And with this stuff, this is much more ambiguous with what you're looking at, and it is harder to read. And there's sometimes that really doesn't work for me, right? Skinamarink is a perfect example of that, where I'm supposed to be afraid of like what's in the frame and like what little maybe images I'm kind of seeing around the frame, and just like that kind of stuff. There has to be something there for me. And with this one, man, there's one of the freakiest images I've seen all year when she's shining her flashlight around in the woods. Now, to me, that's freaky, right? What we see. But to a lot of other people, they'll be like, what? That's nothing. What are you talking about? Like, that's not scary at all. But if some, obvious monster was running at the screen and going, ah, like that would be much more like, look, that's actually scary. And it's like, that's just not as scary to me personally.
Yeah, I think that, different styles of horror movies can provide different things. Obviously, like what you're talking about with like The Conjuring and more of the sort of crowd-pleasing popcorn type horror. It's like a roller coaster where you're getting your thrills, right away. The adrenaline's pumping. Like it's pretty predictable in terms of the ups and downs of the film and like, waiting for that next jump scare. Whereas like movies like this definitely
They creep into your
They,
psyche.
yeah, they're more of something that you maybe even you don't get scared when you're watching it, but then like an image or a thought or something that the film produces sticks with you, and you think about it later and realize that that's like really scary to you on some deeper level. And I don't think every horror film has to be like this. Like, I
No.
think it's fun to have the roller coaster horror
Yeah.
movies, of course.
Yeah.
And those still touch on things that people are afraid of, but it's these types of movies like the Hereditary, the Rabbit Trap, these Up the Hill, even that was another one from this year, that just they do, as you said, kind of creep into your mind.
It's
and
subtle horror.
yeah, I really like that, because for me, I think that's where I think these are the kind of horror movies that I would argue actually can help people when it comes to anxiety and facing their own fears, because it does sort of hold a mirror up to you where you get to see what it is that's making you scared and maybe address that, or at the very least, like, I don't mean fix it, but you're looking at it, like you're looking at your shadow. And I think that's really good for people to do. And that's not to say that if you're the type of person who doesn't enjoy these types of movies that there's something wrong with you or anything like that, but I do think that
You freak.
hopefully you can find a film like this. Maybe it's not this movie, but something that is like along these lines in terms of that, the holding the mirror up, that can interest you and maybe work with you. And maybe not. Maybe you're just not the type of person that looks for that sort of thing in film. There's a lot of people who don't. They just want their quick entertainment, and that's all that film serves to them. But I do think you miss out on the greater part of like film as art and what art can do for humans in general when you don't give movies like this a real chance with your focus and your attention. And
Yeah, but unfortunately, the reality is that when I look at a score like that, I do understand that I can't in good conscience not mention it and not talk about it, because I think the likelihood that the common audience likes this is low.
sure.
And at the end of the day, we are a channel that is trying to get you to spend your time wisely and watch something that might be catered to you.
Yeah, we don't want to recommend something if we think that a ton of people are going to hate it.
Right. I
But
honestly think that a lot of people who
Yeah.
watch this won't like it. And so it's a hard recommendation, but I loved it. Right. So that's always that's a difficult one for me to navigate. And we had a movie like this last year. A few of them, actually. We have these every year where we're like big fans of them. Ash was another film from this year that we really enjoyed,
really
that
liked that
everyone
one.
in the comments seemed to hate, and I was like, okay, I didn't expect that one. I really genuinely thought everyone was going to like that one. At least with this one, I had pre-warning by the IMDb score. But we also watched another movie last year with the girl from Barbarian called Lovely, Dark, and Deep.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which I really enjoyed.
Really
and
liked.
everyone hated.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, what a bummer. But it's like, it is tough. Because, like, on one hand, I'm here to tell you what I thought, but I'm also here to be like, yeah, but also I don't think this is for you. But I don't know you.
I mean, obviously we have a
Stuff.
lot of people out there that watch us, that have very similar tastes to us. That's part of the reason that they watch us. So if you're liking these other films that we've mentioned, The Lovely, Dark, and Deep, Ash, Rabbit Trap, Up the Hill, if you saw that.
Ugh,
If you're
so
liking those types of films, then you should definitely check this one out. But if you're somebody who maybe hasn't seen any of those movies, or, earlier when we were talking about the differences with like The Conjuring and stuff, and that you're the kind of person that doesn't like maybe slower burn, harder to follow, more ambiguous kind of, surreal-ish movies, then this might not be something that you necessarily want to watch, just because you might not enjoy it.
I don't think that this film is ambiguous in a frustrating way, though.
I
do want to say that,
Yeah.
because there are movies we watch and talk about where there's just not enough to chew on
I think
after
there's-
the credits roll. But with this one, I very much felt like there's enough pieces to the puzzle to put together a good enough image in
Yeah.
my head of like what this all meant. Because in the end, you are absolutely going to be like, okay, what the fuck did that mean? And a lot of people will be absolutely disappointed. Like, wow, I sat through that boring ass film for them to leave me with that ending. Like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? That didn't make any sense. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I also think that, you know, if you were to actually pay attention to everything set up in the film, you can come up with an interpretation. And I think that, you know, she can come up with a different interpretation. And I think both are valid with the pieces that are given to us. And I think that that is usually the case for a strong film.
Yeah.
But that's me. That's
I
just
agree.
me.
I agree. Yeah, I like it. I think films are their best when you can talk to people and have very different feelings or, you know, theories about stuff. I think that's where it shines because to me that shows that it's like impacting you personally. And I think when any kind of art is able to do that, where it's like, oh, well, when I listen to this song, like, this is what I feel, and somebody's like, that's not what I feel at all. I think that's really cool and a really fun experience to explore. But anyway.
Yeah. And lastly, really quick, to be fair, the IMDb score is only a collection of like 150 ratings currently.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
I hope it goes
we
up.
can push, you know, more than 150 people, because this video will get more than 150 views. I can guarantee that. And you can go and adjust that rating.
Yeah.
If you like
If you
it.
feel
If you don't like it,
inclined.
then give it the 1 star that you think it deserves, and that's fine. But maybe we can get more ratings and get this freaking, you know, get this score up where it's somewhere around where it deserves.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it will ever be anywhere near it deserves, but at least out of the 3s. Let's
Yeah.
get it out of the 3s.
Yeah.
If you like it, go score it on IMDb. Let's get it out of the 3s. It doesn't deserve to be in the 3s.
No.
For the acting and the filmmaking alone, 3s are fucking trash.
Yeah.
And this is not trash, whether you like it or not. This is not a 3-point something.
Definitely not.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's that.
That's that.
We'll see you in the comments.
Bye.
Adios.